Are you gonna go down?
Shannon is a single mother of 3.
You wanna take this?
Working full-time as a behavioral technician, helping kids with autism. But despite her profession and her education, Shannon barely gets by on her $2,000 a month salary. Tack on rent, student loans, clothes for the kids, and there's very little left for food.
I thought that if I got my bachelor's degree, if I got my master's degree, that would open up so many doors. I wouldn't have to rely on the government, but it just seems like it's not like that.
For some 30 years, the Department of Agriculture has released an annual report on the number of Americans living with food insecurity. The Trump administration ended that report, calling it redundant and overly politicized. But getting rid of the data hasn't erased the problem of hunger or the desire to fix it.
Like most dealing with food insecurity, she'd rather not talk about it. But she agreed for us because she wanted to show others they're not alone.
It's just like this feeling that society puts on you that you're less than or you're dirty because you have to get this assistance. And I feel almost guilty that like I have these children and I should be able to take care of them, but I'm failing.
You're doing everything you can. I can't imagine what more you could do. Yeah. That's got to be hard on you, though.
Almost 48 million Americans don't get enough to eat.
And look at this little tiger.
Shockingly, about 14 million of those are kids.
2026 cost of living report that shows families are facing hardship at higher rates than in years past. Data shows debt in Oregon is rising alongside income, a key signal of financial strain. Fox 12's Julia Lopez joins us live outside a Winco in Beaverton. Julia, what are shoppers saying?
Shoppers all agree they are paying more for food these days and more for everything else. The report shows that housing, food, and credit cards are causing the most stress. Today I talked to people about how they're managing.
Food is high. These are tough times.
Tough times reflected in Oregon's 2026 cost of living report. Data collected by State Treasurer Elizabeth Steiner shows financial hardship is growing more common.
And we're just all confused and just trying to survive out here.
73% of Oregonians report cutting down on expenses to pay for food. 53% say they still struggle to pay bills.
We got to prepare for the times we're in.
Can't even shop in my own neighborhood anymore. All the stores like in Portland are really getting out of hand. Like groceries, when I went last time when I tried to get a pack of strawberries, it was like $7 to $9 at all the stores for one pack of strawberries.
Cassie Shagnon has spent 2 years commuting to Winco in Beaverton.
Oh, I live right by the Timber Stadium, so I'm taking like a 30-minute bus trip out here, and then I have to bus back to it. So yeah, don't have a car right now because of money troubles.
When her car broke down, she says she couldn't afford to replace it, plus keep up with gas and insurance. Treasurer Steiner says nearly half of Oregonians can't afford a $500 emergency and might turn to credit.
By the end of the month, they've run out of money until they get their next paycheck. And so as a result, more Oregonians are using credit cards to pay for essential things like food or gas or utility bills.
The report shows debt is at an all-time high, as are interest rates. Bankruptcy filings increased 25% between 2024 and 2025. Steiner also cites a rise in housing and healthcare costs, plus federal tariffs and funding cuts.
The more things happen like what's happening in the world now, it's going to get higher.
The U.S. economy lost 92,000 jobs last month, far below the gain of 50,000 jobs experts had predicted, no doubt also impacting those market numbers. Bankrate senior economic analyst Mark Hamrick is here with more.
You see there are 92,000 jobs in the hole last month. We now have average monthly jobs creation last year of fewer than 10,000 jobs a month. And you go back to June of last year. This isn't just a one-month phenomenon. June of last year, you've basically had 1 month of jobs creation followed by a month of contraction in payroll, so loss of jobs. So the unemployment rate has essentially hung in there. It moved up 0.1 to 4.4%, and that's about nearly a full percent above the low that we saw in recent years. The question is, are we losing momentum with the job market, and is there a risk the unemployment rate goes higher? Since this report was gathered, which is typically around the 12th of the month of February in this case, we had a war break out. And we see, higher prices emanating from energy, first of all, which ultimately do filter on through the rest of the economy. Average price per gallon of gas in this country up 34 cents, basically in a week. And so this is affecting everything from airline fares to mortgage rates, and the job market isn't doing well. It's a bad combination.
All right, checking your money tonight. After a week full of layoff concerns, we find out today that inflation is still rising, as are our economic challenges. We want to bring in our business and tech reporter, Scott Budman.
The wholesale inflation report showing that what we buy is costing more than it did last month, and by a higher number than expected. Lots of things fueling this. Food and energy costs went up. The cost of living remains high, and here in the Bay Area, our housing prices still up. Tariffs also causing businesses to continue to pass inflated costs onto us, the customer.
There's no avoiding it at this point. Companies who have been eating some of these costs or are now having to turn over their inventories are being forced to increase prices, and they have the ability, in some cases, in services more than goods, to pass on those prices to consumers.
And we talk to consumers, and they say they are feeling that. If inflation stays stubbornly high, economists tell us we may not see another interest rate cut anytime soon. The Federal Reserve, by the way, meets in mid-March.
Okay, so this is an extremely confusing time because we just got off the State of the Union address a couple of days ago where the president told us that inflation was a record low, points, that the economy was roaring, that we were in this golden age, and yet now we see these numbers. So if you're sitting at home, you're thinking, am I going to get laid off? Should I not buy something?
Right.
I think it's very difficult to understand.
It is, and that's why it's important to watch lots of news and get your facts checked. Inflation is not at record lows. It is lower than it was a couple of years ago, but as we now know, it's about 3% higher than it was last year. Prices creeping higher. As for jobs, that is a concern. The stock market may be high because of AI-related stocks, but one of the reasons company stock prices are high
is because they're hiring machines instead of people.
And cutting costs.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, joining me right now, we have Congresswoman from Arizona, Yasemin Ansari. She is the first Iranian-American Democrat in Congress, and it's nice to talk with you again. 13 American military dead, 1 million people displaced, U.S. allies in the region defending Iranian attacks, a new hard-line supreme leader, global oil prices skyrocketing. The list goes on, but what is your assessment of this war today?
As I have always said, I don't believe that Donald Trump had either good intentions or any sort of coherent plan or strategy when it comes to the war with Iran. It has been catastrophic to see the impacts and the way that this has impacted Americans, whether they be service members, whether it be Americans stranded abroad who had a very difficult time leaving the countries that they were in the Middle East as Iran was retaliating. Now we're seeing, as reported by Reuters, thousands of Marines being sent to the Middle East, which indicates that the Trump administration is considering ground troops, which is not what any American wants. And we are seeing the economic impacts of this not well thought out war. Here in Arizona just today, the prices at the pump are close to $5 a gallon. And I'm hearing from my constituents about their fear about a potential draft and, escalation of this war, but also what the cost is here. People cannot afford rent. People cannot afford health care. The Trump administration is actively ripping away Medicaid and food assistance from people and still cannot give any American a real answer as to why we are in this war and what the plan and the off-ramp and the end game is to any of this.